Let's
All right.
see what the hell's going on for this week.
Hell yeah. Gonna turn my Wi-Fi off so we don't get any disruptions. All right, cool. On my phone, not the computer, obviously. So let's jump right into it. Sunday market blitz, guys. Sunday's here again. It's a brand new trading week, and we're gonna do the run through. We're gonna cover all the pairs that we normally do, maybe cover some others outside of Forex. But yeah, let's see what this week has. Let's get right into it. So I'm gonna go through pretty much my process. It's, very methodical. We're going to start on the daily time frame, grab the overall trend, and then drop to the 4-hour and discuss the potential for the week ahead. For my strategy, the 4-hour highlights the weekly movement the best. So that's where I'm normally looking for setups, like either a long scenario, making a setup where I'm choosing targets, pretty much all based on the 4-hour. Okay, so here on the daily, we can see that we're overall bullish. We did just break a key level of resistance here at 97.25. See, price action surged through that, and now we're kind of bouncing a little bit. So we are bullish. Let's now go to the 4-hour and see what DXY is doing. Okay, so this obviously rallied pretty hard through this level. Here's that 97.25 level. And then we reached a high of about 99.3. So since this point, we pushed back down, gave us our higher low above this level. Then it pushed up again, hit the same high, bounced, pushed lower, hit the same low. So we're looking like we're forming a range. Usually I like to count at least 3 touches to consider it a full-blown range. This is, obviously 1 touch away, but it's suggesting that it's reacting like it's a range. So in my opinion, the most likely scenario is that we're going to get continuous bullish reactions off this level, and we'll see price action make an attempt at higher resistance. Okay, that's the most likely thing. So like these are if scenarios, right? I'm not saying that, hey, we're, the dollar is strongly bullish and it will go towards here for the rest of the week. I'm saying based on price action, if it plays out in this way, it's very likely that we're going to reach this high again. Obviously, we're closer to a bullish scenario than a bearish scenario because price action, in order to consider a bearish, has to break through support, pull back, give us some sort of structure in the form of a lower high, and then follow through with conviction. So obviously this is closer to happening than this. Okay, so these are the 2 scenarios. This is what we're looking at for this week on DXY. We'll see. We'll see if it plays out, but it's definitely in a pretty good spot that's suggesting bullishness. So with that information, let's go over to our first tradable pair, AU, which hasn't been looking too great lately. We'll get to that in a second on the 4-hour, but first thing we want to grab is the daily trend. So we started out over here super bearish, huge extension to the downside. Price action came back up. This is the lower high for this swing down, right? Came back up. Here's the lower high, pushed lower, back down towards the monthly where we saw a double top. Then price action started pulling back a little bit. We ran into some traffic here, got a little bit of resistance, but then it pushed through. We hit 0.73, and then we broke this lower high here. Okay, so once we broke there, came back down, gave us another test of this level at 0.72, and then rallied super hard off of that. So we are bullish here, right? We broke the lower high. We're now looking at structure points above 0.73. So it's looking more bullish than anything else here on the daily. Okay, so let's go to the 4-hour. Take a look at these 2 scenarios, both bullish and bearish short term. So clearly we're in a pretty strong 4-hour channel. We do have this kind of minor level 0.73 between these 2 major points, 0.74, 0.72. So ideally, we'd like to see a pullback to that, catch a higher low there. This would be the safest scenario, right? Price action pulls back. We get nice structure, nice higher low, and then good conviction to the upside. This would be a long opportunity in here off of 0.73. If by the time we get to execution, the risk to reward lines up. So at least 2 to 1, it's looking like that pretty good. About 100 pips at 100 pips for 30. Not bad, 3 to 1. So this would be ideal, right? It came back down, we got the higher low, and then it pushed up again. If it doesn't do this, the other likely scenario is that this continues to rally and we see 0.74 break, price action establishes a high up here closer to 0.75, and then we can comfortably look for higher lows above, and we would be interested in entering long on that. But it really comes down to structure. This has to push high enough where you can kind of say, okay, this is good, a good higher low that's going to form here, when it does. And then you would feel a lot of confidence entering on that. But you got to wait, fortunately. Like if we were to fib this, so if we were to fib this here, 50% is at 0.73. This is what I mean when we need a serious push, a serious break of 0.74 for structure. Because now if we get all the way up here, we get a push to 0.75, 38.2 is right in line with this 0.74 support. So that's why it needs to really push up, then come back down, form structure, and continue. So we'll see. I mean, AU's pretty low on the list for me. There's some better setups that we're going to get to. But yeah, we got to wait here on AU. A lot of volume. And that's normally what happens when you have a week that has a crazy amount of volume. There's not really going to be a trade present until the market kind of calms down and resumes some sort of normal conditions. Okay, I mean, like we could measure this too, just to get an idea. This is AU, remember, this is one of the slower moving pairs. I always recommend this as a beginner pair. So to see a 230 pip move out of AU, it's pretty, abnormal and very significant at the same time. So we got to wait. We'll see it this calm down. Hopefully we get some, consolidation after this dropped and then something more clear presents itself. Let's jump over to AJ. This one is through the roof right now. So let's go to the daily time frame first. This one is super bullish. As you guys can see, we had some nice higher lows here. We broke through the weekly as price action was consolidating. Huge volume breaking through that weekly zone. We ran into a little bit of resistance here at 85, broke that as well, rallied right through 87. So this thing is like a freight train. I mean, this thing is just pumping to the upside. Okay, so very bullish here on the daily. Let's take a look at that 4 hour, see where we're at. Okay, so this was essentially like a rising wedge with a lot of volume. So a rising wedge can kind of go either direction. It is a pattern. It can be a reversal, if price action dropped, or, it could be a continuation. But the key to finding out which way it's going to go is really the volume. So just like how we read price action normally, if this started consolidating a little more strictly and started kind of curving out a little bit more, kind of like more seeming like a dying of a trend, then that would be more suggesting towards a reversal. This had really strong volume, was actually breaking through resistance while it was forming the pattern. So right here, broke through 85, came back down, gave us a higher low, nice engulfing as well, and then took off from there. So this had a lot of volume. That was the key. And it's been continuing with this volume since. So there's really not any trade opportunities now rather than what we'd like to see. So assuming that we're going to continue bullish, that's what we're looking like right now. And assuming this is the new high, we'd like to see price action pull back, end up at a nice confluence spot, give us a higher low, form structure closer to 38.2 and 87 support, and then we can get a nice trade opportunity long, targeting our monthly around 90.
Dude, this thing is moving so much. God damn.
I know, dude, the volume has been crazy. So if it does do this, this is best case scenario for where price action is right now, right, guys? If price action pulls back now, gives a structure where we want to see it, this would be a 10 out of 10 trade. But it has to follow this trade path. Obviously, this thing can just, shoot to the moon, but there's nothing there for us. We want to kind of highlight things that we, want to see and then wait for that to happen. So that's what this is here. Waiting for it to pull back, waiting for structure, and then boom, we're long. And then look at the risk reward. This is significant. And again, because the volume, so it can kind of give you good risk reward when you have high volume structure, or it could really skew you if it, there is no trade. Because obviously, if we were to just enter on a move like this, where would your stop loss be? Like there's no risk reward here whatsoever. So you need structure. Okay, and that's where we're at now. So a good 4 to 1. We could even be a little modest. Go just target the 27, the negative 27, not even 90, and still a 3.5 to 1. So about 60 pips for 200 roughly. Not a bad trade whatsoever. So let's consider the opposite, right? What do we have to see for us to consider this short? Let's talk about it. Price action has to come back down through 87, meaning fails to form structure in the form of a higher low. Price action falls back through 87, retest then as new resistance, gives us a lower high, and then boom, we'd be interested in shorting down towards lower support levels. So this is what this would look like, right? Price action drops, and then we're looking for entries in this area after the lower high is formed. So let me just clear these fibs up, make things super simple. This is roughly where we would enter. Again, it depends on how price action forms, but this is the ideal scenario. We would be looking at something like this. So this would be barely a 2-to-1, not as much room for profit on this one as the long scenario, but could still get something pretty good out of this. Just over 150, risking about 80 so pips. So pretty good trade there as well. But we'll have to see. Definitely closer to the long scenario as we're obviously above resistance, looking at it as new support. So we'll see. Could be a pretty good move here on AJ. But yeah, guys, these are also live charts. So if you ever want to, like, through the week, come back or check on what we were looking at, like, oh, what did you know, Nick's AJ trade look like? You know, where can I pull that up? These are dropped in Discord and Telegram. They're active charts, so you can hit that play button and see what's happening, see which trade scenario is playing out. Okay, so AJ is crap. It's not looking good this week, guys. Sorry to say, but it's low on my list, super low on my list. And I analyze, yeah, who said that? The guy in the back.
Fuck AJ.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. So I had to analyze this one on the daily time frame because it's so overextended. So just to start this chart off, let's just measure this rally here. Oh, look, nice. A modest 450 pips at a UJ. Unbelievable. So there's nothing you can do with that, obviously, unless you're in this trade already. I mean, beast trade, if you are, good for you. You're an animal. But if you're not, guys, there's nothing here. We can't enter on this yet. We need to see one of two things happen. First, we need to see rejection of this resistance, but not immediately. That wouldn't be the greatest thing, right? We'd like to see some sort of consolidation and then normal structure, right? On the 4-hour, a nice lower high is not too much to ask. And then we could enter short on the 4-hour, catch a nice 4-hour trade down towards where we would expect the next higher low in this channel would be, which is right also with recent broken structure around 115.8 area, let's say. So that's an idea. This could be a great short opportunity this week if this presents itself, but this consolidation is key. You really need something clear. So consolidation or a head and shoulders, maybe a fake out, and then actually that looks nasty. Let's clear that up. Maybe a fake out like this, and then some consolidation, some lower highs. That would all be acceptable, but nothing can happen right now. We need to see a little bit more price action. But again, we're on the daily, so it's going to take time. So everyone just kind of just wait on this one. Don't hold your breath, okay? So once this does drop, the likely scenario is that it's going to curve out. We're going to see a higher low and continue higher, okay? Because this channel is still very much in play. Price action could fall all the way down to this area and still technically be bullish here on the daily. You know, the 4-hour is a different story. You know, but obviously we just went over that. We need to see a lot more price action to consider anything on UJ. So UJ is at the bottom of my list, unfortunately, but I mean, kind of expected. UJ is like the dramatic sister of DXY. So whatever DXY does, UJ does ×2, right? So the dramatic sister, we could say, or brother, however you want to put it. DXY moves a little bit, UJ is going to go to the moon. So there's not much we can do because, you know, obviously DXY has been moving quite a bit, and it's also seen here on UJ. So let's move on to the next one, EJ. And for this week, I kind of went into a little more detail here because this is interesting. What's happening here on EJ is obviously we've been seeing we have crazy amount of volume up here. This is all recent price action. So this flag that you're seeing started in May 21, and obviously now it's, you know, March 2022. But this is the flagpole, and now we have this giant weekly flag. So I thought that was interesting to point out. You know, could it continue? That's what this is suggesting. We'll see. You know, and this last 2 weeks, these last 2 weeks have really also put that into perspective, that this could really pop 133 and continue higher. So that's interesting from the weekly. Here's the daily, which is newly bullish as well, because look here, this thing was tanking like you wouldn't believe, and it fell all the way down to 125, pulled back. There's an inverse head and shoulders in here too, which I covered on last week's analysis. Finally popped on that, and it's been bullish since then. So we're in the upper part of that weekly flag. Let me just zoom out a little bit here. We're in the upper part. This is where if something's going to happen, the magic's going to happen in here, either off this level or we're going to, you know, rally a little bit higher and then see something But this is a powerful move, guys. This is not something to kind of ignore, you know? So let's go to the 4-hour. We are definitely bullish here on this rally. Clearly, we broke through this range, smashing through resistance. It's bullish. We just need a higher low for structure. So that's what we're going to try and gather from the 4-hour. Let's drop down here. All right, so this is the top of the flag. This is that upper trend line from the weekly. But this is really the key zone, 133. So we're looking to get there. So let's take a look at this last rally. So we're looking to get to 133. Ideally, we need structure. This would be the time for price action to pull back, give us that higher low above 136.5. And this is what the trade opportunity would look like. So let me zoom in a little bit more for you guys. It may look close, but this is a serious amount of pips and a great risk reward. It's almost a 4-to-1, risking about 60 to get around 220. 220. This is a big trade, guys. Almost 4-to-1. So just wait for that. This would be ideal. Please, EJ. When it forms structure, it's beautiful. This would be textbook, and we'd be in on it. Okay, so if that happens, great. If this fails to push higher and continues to continue forming this weekly flag, as we said, we're going to look to short towards the bottom of it, but we need to see a lower high first. So this level here, 136.5, needs to break. Price action needs to fall through it, come back, retest, give us that lower high, and then we're entering in this area as a short. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit, actually get this into perspective a little bit more. Okay, so we'll be looking for a lower high here, and this would be a 2-part trade. Okay, so your first trade would be down to 129 or 128.9, which is over a 2-to-1 already. And then you're looking for the exact same thing at this level. So a break and retest, very similar to this. Okay, and then look for a lower high, continue selling below this level and down towards pretty much 126.5 area. If I just zoom out, you guys can see that this is just, we're playing zone to zone here while we're within this flag. Okay, if we get the higher low above, we're targeting 133. We get the lower high below, we're targeting 128.9, which is the bottom of the range, and then ultimately back down towards our low at 126.5. Just got to follow price action, see how it plays out. Can't do anything yet. But this one's looking good. I'm feeling pretty confident on EJ on this long scenario. So we'll see. All right, so let's jump over to gold, which is going to be the last one that I cover for you guys. And this one's looking interesting. We actually may have a short opportunity right now, but let's go to the daily first. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Do the due diligence. Patience pays. So here we are, very bullish. Clearly, anyone who's looked at gold in the last couple of months has seen that this thing has been skyrocketing. So we broke 1870, super bullish there, continued rallying, broke 1930. Price action shot all the way to 2070, which again is like $4 away from our all-time high, which is pretty nuts. Rejected from there. There is a nice head and shoulder pattern here. We'll see that on the 4-hour in a second, and then it dumped. And now price action fell back down to 1930. And we are looking pretty bearish now. This is a nice engulfing from the daily. Closed very clearly. So we're looking bearish. It's a nice lower high right here. Let's take a look on the 4-hour, see where we're at. So on the daily, the lower high looks pretty good. Here, it's not as clean. I would have really liked this lower high to be below 1930. That would have been a 10 out of 10 trade, right? This is more like 8 out of 10, just because it kind of struggled a little bit, kind of faked out, pulled back, got the lower high somewhere around this level. Just not perfect, essentially. So now the likely scenario is that price action is going to keep melting down towards 1870. Look for a quick retest if you can. We still haven't gotten a lower high below 1930 technically, so that's still in play. If price action did something like this, you could enter somewhere over here. That'd be perfect. Or even if you catch a nice bearish variation, now even could be a decent short, and it's a 2-to-1. So this would be pretty good. It's about 540 pips for 270. Not a bad trade. Now, if price action fails to push lower, what do we need to see in order to consider long scenarios and pretty much say to ourselves, hey, gold is bullish now on the 4-hour. There could be some good opportunity here. We essentially need price action to pop above 1930, a little more established than this, right? Something pretty well into the zone and then get a higher low. A nice higher low, good conviction, and then that would be a good long scenario. I'd have no problem targeting back towards 2000 if we saw this higher low with good rejection. And this would be a little bit of a better trade, almost a 3.5 to 1, risking just around 200 to get 680 pips. Not a bad day's worth of work. So we'll see this one play out. Whichever way it goes, we'll be ready. But yeah, that's all my analysis. Let's do a quick recap. I covered DXY, AU, AJ, UJ, EJ, and gold. I mean, you guys could just see the volume just scrolling through those really quick. Last week was crazy. Look at the size of these rallies here. This is nuts. But again, guys, these are live charts. So if you want to access these or kind of review them, read what we wrote, and pretty much see how these play out through the week, jump over to Telegram. They're dropped in there, and they're also always available on TradingView. All right, they're also in Discord. But yeah, so that's all my analysis. I'm going to pass this off to Angelo. Let's see what he's looking at for this week. Thanks, guys.
Let's go. Let's see. So I'm looking at BTC right now. Just closed on the weekly, and if we're going based on our little rule weekly 10% close, it closed just below 10%.
Oof.
Which is not good.
That's a red flag, guys.
It's a red flag. So we'll see. I mean, this thing kind of just looks like it's like consolidating, almost looks like it's forming like a pennant here on like the lower time frame, and then it's like,
yeah,
just gonna probably continue to the downside realistically.
Oh man, I'll be praying tonight.
Dude, yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, I feel like at this point anything could happen with, you know, a lot of the things that are going on fundamentally in the world to drive Bitcoin up. But technically speaking, definitely looks like it's going to continue to go to the downside. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that we've got a bit of a pennant going right here. So we have at least 2 points to the downside. We have at least 2 points to the upside here where it's, you know, hit. So yeah, looks technically like it's going to probably end up going to the downside. I mean, hopefully, you know, ideally it does something like this where it just stays above here and then does a like break and retest scenario, moves to the upside. But long term, this is what we're kind of mapping out for this anyway. So we're looking for it to consolidate within this range down here. And it obviously really hasn't broke down. Like I know it has come in here, but it hasn't consolidated in this area at all yet. So I mean, we'll see with BTC. If we were to come down to a lower time frame on this one, like coming down to the 4 hour, we can see on the 4 hour, it's just really sloppy. You might even have to just hit the daily right now. So daily, again, it's just kind of, if we switch up how we're drawing this based on the daily time frame, we can actually move this up a little bit. And then we have this to the downside here, which is still kind of coming up, but really this is just more of a continuational pattern of this overall downtrend that we have here. So I'm going to just move this down.
100%. It's also never good to see a lot of consolidation around a support or resistance level. That's not a good sign for support.
No, I mean, normally you want to see it hit the support and then have some sort of like big reaction to support and reject it and move to the upside. So right now it's kind of just like buyers are stepping in, but overall sellers are more in control right now, which we're seeing once, twice, 3 times, right? So we'll see if it can, you know, snap this resistance here. This is what I was talking about before. Then we would see something similar to this, and then we can head to the upside here. But it's looking more likely, in my opinion, that we're going to get more downside movement on this one. So we'll have to see with BTC. I mean, in regards to trying to take opportunities on this, like honestly, the best thing you could take based on the daily time frame would be a short at this high point. You've got like a triple top or quadruple top at this point situation here where prices rejected this multiple times. You are in a downtrend, so you do want to be shorting at these lower high points. So that's definitely one little trade idea if you wanted to swing trade BTC. I'm looking more for the longer term moves right now. So For me, I'm just looking at the weekly time frame and trying to see, are we going to move to the upside? Yes, we did. We did see this candle over here, which was about a 14% candle. So price did shoot up at that point. If we come down to the 4-hour time frame and kind of take a look at that candle, which wasn't all of that, but it was. Let's do a little bit of a measurement. So we've got this. And for you guys that are struggling with going from different time frames, sometimes it's good to just highlight what you're trying to look at and then come down to a lower time frame and kind of see where that's at, because that's what's actually making up this candle. So we can see right here, this is pretty much that 12 to 14% candle right there. And we did get a break, a little bit of a break of structure. Then it did move up, but then ultimately we rejected around this 45 area, which was this previous high. Rejected it once, twice, 3 times. So when it comes back into this area, it's very likely that it's going to reject again. And I'm not trying to take buys until that area actually does break. So that's BTC. Let's look at NAS 100 next. We had a little trade idea on this one last week, which played out pretty decently. We've been following this for 2 weeks now, so the analysis should start getting pretty better. But honestly, first 2 weeks has been pretty good. My analysis on a lot of the other pairs last week was not as good, but NAS 100 was actually pretty good. So let's start off on the weekly time frame. That's where I normally start off with the analysis, just kind of get the overall levels. As you can see last week, NAS 100 shot up so much. It moved 11% in the week. Like, that's absolutely absurd. And it closed with no wick at the top here. Literally just closed with a solid candle. So this thing is just, at this point, moving. It hit the support down here. As you can see, it hit this level multiple times, and then it shot up. And we actually had support a bit lower. We had it about at 12,775, right around in this area. So it didn't exactly hit that area. Instead, it actually hit support at these wicks, which we did go over last week. So it hit this area with the wicks and then shot up. But look at the weekly. I mean, this thing overall had been very bearish, right? So we were looking for short opportunities, and going into last week, we were continuing to look for short opportunities, and we're going to get into what those are. But that's basically the weekly time frame, what the structure is looking like. So let's hit down to the 4-hour. So 4-hour time frame. Going into 2 weeks ago, this was the trade that we got into. It started to range quite a bit, but this was definitely a decent trade. We had the support level marked here. So as we could see, this support was based on not the honestly clearest level in the world, but we had support marked here. We had support, we had break and retest, and then it moved down and started ranging kind of between this area. I'm just going to move this level down here, because now we know that this is ultimately the better zone to actually mark up. So I'm just going to move this up right there, and then we'll come back to the 4-hour. So again, 4-hour time frame, we've got our levels placed. We've got this upper level, we've got this lower level, and obviously we just broke. But let's go over last week what we were looking at. So going into the week, this is right where market opened up. We look at March 11th to 13th. This is right where the market opened up, and then all we were looking for, quite simply on the lower time frame, was pretty much a retest of this newly broken support, which you could see barely missed. But I mean, realistically, if you had the analysis marked up, this was definitely a trade you could have got into. But basically, we're just looking for a retest. I didn't actually get on a trade on this because I was looking for it to get to this level right here. But break, retest, it actually retested this once, twice, then it broke, retested this broken support, and then it shot down back to the support level. So this was just kind of a continuation trade based on the original trade, because we knew that we were in a decent trade, so we were trying to scale in on that one. Now, this is obviously invalid at this point. So let's go up to the 4-hour time frame, where actually I like to go on the daily with this pair with NAS 100, just because structure is a little bit more clean. And on the daily, let's just keep it as simple as possible here. I mean, basically, we were in an uptrend right here. We were making this high. Boom, we made a new high above this previous higher high. And then we had a little bit of a breakdown where we broke support. We had our first lower high. We had a retest of that low. And then price came up to retest this high. Kind of got a little bit sketchy in this area. But ultimately, what happened is we shifted into a downtrend. And then we had these lower high points. And this is all kind of just noise. But then we made a new low, lower high, new low, lower high, retested the low, and then look what we're currently doing right now. So let's just clean this up a little bit. So clearly a downtrend, right? Going to the downside. And clearly we have just broken a level of resistance. And let's just bring on here a little bit of a trend line. So we were clearly in a downtrend. We just zoom out a little bit. This is what I'm referring to. Price was just moving to the downside, making lower highs, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Now we've just broken. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for either a retest of this level, this high point right here, or a retest of the lower level. So NAS 100, and this is the daily. So this is kind of a more overall move right now to potentially get. But NAS 100, pretty much we've got level 1 here. And I'm just going to leave these levels on. We're going to see how ultimately this plays out over the next couple of weeks. You guys get an idea of what I'm looking at. So we have that level. And then we have this lower level right here. And instead of using these lines, let's actually bring this on. We'd be targeting this first. If we took a trade here, most likely stops would be in this area. So we can take this off. So that's our first trade idea, is based on a retest of this support level. And then trade idea number 2, we'd be targeting the same area. And our stops would most likely be right in this area. But we kind of clean that up once it actually gets there. But roughly would be in that area. And I'm going to take this off. And then say price did actually reverse right now, those would also line up with some fib levels. We got 38.2 down here. This doesn't exactly line up, which leads me to believe this may have some more room just to go bullish in the beginning, but we'll see how that goes. So NAS 100, these are my 2 trade ideas. Trade idea number 1 right here, and then trade idea number 2 is down here. So we'll see how those play out. So let's go to GU next. All right, so GU is kind of the same idea as last week. We're coming into this level. So let's hit up to the weekly and kind of go over what I'm looking at here. So GU on the weekly time frame, as you guys can see, overall in the weekly, we are in a downtrend, forming these lows, lower highs. Look at this thing. It's pretty clear as day that this thing has been going to the downside. We've been following this now on every Sunday market blitz. So this has been going to the downside for quite some time. Now, what we're looking at is we hit a new low, right? We hit a new low point on the weekly. So we're most likely going to continue to retrace, but we are in a potential area to actually take a sell because we're at the previous support level, right? So what I'm talking about is we have support here, and now we're testing it as resistance. If we do get some rejection in this area, this could be an area to sell from. And what I'm getting at is coming down to the 4-hour time frame. 4-hour, we're still pretty much in a downtrend. We have some noise down here, but overall, looking at this is how I would draw a structure right now. I would draw it like this, and now we're retesting this previous lower high. I'm not counting these as lower highs down here. I'm more looking at this area as being more significant. So once price breaks this area, we're in a whole different situation. So now that I'm looking at it this week, I'm going to actually take all of this off. So this is trade idea number 1. If this gets invalidated, then we are going to be looking at a completely different trade. And coming up to the weekly, I'm not going to be taking a short until price actually makes it back up into this area. So let's come to the 4-hour. So that's the next area. This is pretty much a supply zone up here. So it's a supply zone, previous high point. It's also a weekly support level. That's what we just drew on the weekly time frame. So this is definitely a significant area to take shorts from, and this is how I would map it out. We'd put stops somewhere in this area. We'd tighten it up quite a bit, and then this would be like our first target, and then we'd ultimately have other targets down lower. But as you can see, the risk reward would be pretty decent. Just targeting this previous level. So GU, we'll see if this thing's going to continue to just like glide to the upside. Let's come over to DXY really quickly. So DXY is pretty much in an uptrend. What did Nick, what did you have DXY doing?
I had it mostly in an uptrend as long as it's above 98 here, really. Well, actually a little bit lower. Yeah, like 98 area. It's pretty bullish.
Looks pretty bullish, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had it kind of bouncing between these two areas, 99.25, and then what is this, 90, 97.85 area. So as long as it's above that, we're pretty bullish. I have it curving out, heading back up for now, unless we see that break, of course. But for now, yeah, definitely more bullish than anything else.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look at the 4 hour. And we did have this kind of lower high point right here. But at the same time, you know, just looking at kind of where we're at, if we're just going based on the fundamentals here of TA, we had this our low point, we made a new high, our low. Yes, we just hit a lower high right there, but really until we break support here, we should be still trying to long this. And this would be the next target coming up into the like 99,600, 99,700 area. Coming up into that zone would kind of be the next target. So with that in mind, if DXY is going to go bullish, that would mean that GU would just tank right now. I mean, if DXY went up about 1.3%, went up around 120 pips, you know, that would mean that DXY would start to fall pretty considerably, probably fall the same amount, 160 pips.
Yeah, if not a little bit more. Sometimes they do react.
Yeah,
Percentage
no,
wise more, yeah.
that's like just when I'm taking the DXY percentage and then like putting it on GU, that's definitely not 1-to-1, right?
Right.
But it's gonna move, you know, whether it's gonna move 1% or it might move 2% if DXY moves up 1%, right? So we don't know, but definitely correlated if DXY does push up, that this thing is gonna push to the downside, which obviously would be pretty fire. So this is a decent trade idea for the week, guys. The risk reward is obviously huge, and even if you're only targeting the previous low, it's still a 3-to-1 risk reward right there on your money. So this is definitely a decent trade idea for the week if you guys are interested. And then if it does end up breaking, we always have this area, and then this risk reward gets crazy as well, depending how tight you want to put the stop loss. This is definitely a decent trade idea up here as well. So that's GU. Let's go to NU. As you see last week, not the best idea on NU last week. We did originally want to short from here. Didn't get the short opportunity because it didn't retest the level that we wanted. And then it actually did hit the target. And then we were looking, if it didn't retest this area, we were looking for it to retest kind of this supply zone up here. Just blew through that zone. So it didn't actually hold as resistance. So that wasn't that good. So we got to reevaluate NU for this week. So coming up to the weekly time frame, what I like to do if something like that happens is kind of just clear everything, zoom out, try to get a better picture as to what's going on, look at the higher time frame. And when I'm looking at this, I'm kind of seeing what I'm seeing right now. So you guys can get an idea. Is I'm seeing this level. I'm seeing all this support right here, even going as far back to right here. So we have all of that support. We even have the support over here. And then to the flip side, in this same zone, we've got the resistance right there as well. So let's just mark this whole level as resistance. And then obviously we've got this and this. So this is kind of what I'm looking at is I'm like, okay, we have all of this support and resistance all on these areas, even going as far back to this zone. So we pretty much need to draw a zone between all of these levels right here. And if we were going to draw, putting everything in perspective, this is how we would draw it. But we definitely want to narrow it down a little bit more to where most of them are. So this is what I'll kind of do. It's like, all right, let's take things down a little bit further. Yeah, we've got some arrows up here, got some down here, we've got some arrows up here, but this kind of makes a little bit more sense now. We're bringing everything a little bit closer together. And this is kind of covering now all of these arrows. And then as you can see, when we're looking left, that's kind of where we're currently at. So price has actually moved above this level that I've identified as being a very strong zone. And the next very strong zone that I'm personally seeing is like right in this area. So I'm doing the same thing up there. I'm not going to mark all the arrows again, but that's pretty much how I'm thinking about it. Is I'm just literally looking, this is just simple support and resistance that I'm just marking up right here. But I'm literally just looking like, okay, what are all the levels, that I want to be placing my zone around? We've got support, we've got resistance. So definitely major up there. So as you can see, we're far away from that zone. Now looking at structure, this is what I like to do next is weekly time frame. We have some downtrend structure. So we were in an uptrend. And then what happened? We had made that lower high. And then we started doing a little bit of consolidation here. But ultimately, we kind of broke to the downside. So let's just take this off. And let's try to make sense of all this. Let's balance this out a little bit more. So looking at this on the weekly and looking at this just with the line chart, you would clearly say, if I gave you a homework example, you would just tell me, okay, this is a downtrend, right? This was an uptrend. Now we are in a downtrend. If I bring this back on and I just map this out, let's actually take this back off. And if I gave you this as like a homework example and said, what are the possible scenarios here, right? What would you tell me is going to happen next? You would tell me that I'm looking for entries on lower high points in this downtrend. We are now at a potential area for a lower high point right here. And what I mean as we retrace from this low all the way up into this area. And this could now potentially be an area that forms the next lower high in this sequence of events and pushes us to the downside. So this is basically opportunity number one. And then opportunity number two would be this thing continues to push, continues to break the resistance. And then we actually shift from a downtrend into an uptrend. Would probably look something more similar to this. So that would be kind of scenario number two. So let's take all this off and actually bring this back on. So this is how I get my trade ideas, right? This is my idea here. We might have a break of resistance. And if it continues to push to the upside, this is when I'd be looking for my new trend. And then right now I'm kind of just looking for price to break down. So let's come to the 4 hour and take a look at this. And on the 4 hour time frame, what lines up with my higher time frame bias right here? And based on the higher time frame, I'm actually looking to short this. And on the 4 hour time frame, this looks like it's in pretty much an uptrend right now, right? We made this new high, kind of moved down. So we did have a break of support there, but then it just pushed up. So this is kind of a fake out, how it broke support, then it dumped. And this is what we were talking about last week, how I was looking for this to continue to the downside. Then it just rallied really strongly. So I'm personally looking for NU to come back to the downside. That's what my trade idea is on this one. And that's just because I always want to try to line up the weekly and the 4 hour time frame. I'm not trying to counter trend or anything like that. And the weekly, pretty much what I'm seeing on the weekly is that, again, we're in this lower high opportunity right here. So I'm just going to mark this out with this. So this whole zone right here is definitely just an opportunity to create a subsequent lower high point. So in this area, I'm going to be looking for breaks of structure on the 4 hour. I'm going to be looking for, breaks of support and trying to get in so I can get in early. If this thing does end up moving to the downside, it has the potential to move 350 pips And if we get this, say, for example, we get this right here and our stop loss is, 100 pips, that becomes a 3-to-1, 3.5 to 1 risk reward trade. So that's my idea on NU. There's really nothing at the moment. Like one thing that comes to mind is we have the support. Let's just take this off. We have support right here, right? So if price does one of these, breaks support, does a bit of a retest, pushes to the downside, this is pretty much what I would be looking at. And then we'd have stops up there, and we'd have like target 1 here, target 2 there, target 3 all the way down there. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking at for NU, but we're gonna have to be a little bit patient on this one because it's right above where we need to be right now. So let's go to GJ next. Again, last week got a little banged up on GJ. So GJ thought I was gonna hit this level, do a bit of consolidation, move to the downside. Luckily, the way that we were instructing to take the trade, if we actually go back to when the market opened, which was pretty much right here. Pretty much this was last week's analysis. I was waiting for price to come up into this area, and then I wanted to see, I had said on the call, this was the risky trade to just take a sell limit up here and then see if it swings. And then this was the more conservative trade, where if we wait for support to break and the retest, then we get it when it actually breaks and it actually is moving to the downside. And then as we could see, price came up, we almost broke, then we came up, and then we got stopped. So if you took this trade, you would have got stopped out. And this kind of shows why sometimes patience does pay, and then it ended up shooting all the way to the upside. So let's clear all this off and let's actually take a look and just do this analysis all over again. So weekly time frame, we're back at the weekly level. So as we zoom out, we've actually taken quite a few wins in this area. Yeah, this is definitely an area to potentially sell on GJ. So looking at this area, we've had resistance here, support here, some consolidation here, resistance, and then resistance, resistance, resistance. So whether we break this area this time, who knows? It could be the time that we break it, but we've definitely rejected this, obviously, as you can see, multiple times. So coming to the 4-hour, it's, very, very much in our probability to short this until we actually get a real break of structure. And we could just zoom out and we can put stops pretty much above this previous high point. And then we have a ton of room here, and we have 2-to-1, which would kind of be lining up with this previous high. We have 3-to-1, which would be lining up down here. And then if we were to target this level 5, then obviously we have the whole range here that it could move within. So that's the short idea if you wanted to take GJ and just kind of short it right now. With last week, there being so much volume coming into the market, it could become a situation where we're actually getting ready to break the resistance. My only reason I'm hesitant is we have not broken this resistance since 2016. So this has maintained this below basically 157,600, pretty much below this area for 6 years. So whether it's time to break this, I mean, overall, look at the weekly, it is in a bit of an uptrend, right? It has been moving to the upside. We are like consolidating right now, but it is in an uptrend overall. So will this be the next leg to the upside? We'll see. I'm just not going to trust it until it actually breaks. So this is pretty much going to be the trade idea for the week on GJ. And then last but not least, let's get into USD Cad. So USD Cad, we had the right idea last week. We pretty much just got in a little bit early. We got in right here, and then it moved up to a new high and then moved down. So last week got a little banged up, but we're about to come back this week. So coming up to the weekly, this thing's just been so fucking choppy. And this is why, guys, trading ranges kind of just bites you in the ass at the end of the day. But let's just go over now, like, kind of my process, seeing what I see now. Let's see where I could have improved, my analysis. So last couple weeks, look at that. We're within this range. I marked this down. We have support, resistance, resistance, very straightforward. And then we have this lower level here, and we can either leave this here, or we can actually move this to be a bit lower. I kind of like this lower level a little bit better. So we have this range that we're just bouncing in, and pretty much it grabbed liquidity from this area 2 weeks ago from 1.2900, 1.29100. And then last week I was just predicting that it was going to move to the downside. We just got in a little bit early. But I was basically looking to short right off of this resistance, and then ended up moving up about, I don't know, 1% more than I had hoped or planned for it to move up before it ended up shitting to the downside. But clearly right now we're in a downtrend on this pair. Now we're not going to actually take and order a subsequent entry until it comes back up into this area. And the reason why is pretty simple. I mean, this is just previous support level. And if we were to fib this, let's just clean this up a little bit, we would see that it kind of lines up with the 38.2 right in that area as well. Let's just move this. So this would be the area that we would want to short it. And it's pretty much the very similar area to, or actually, no, it's still a different area than last time. But yeah, this is definitely the trade idea. It would be something like this, 3-to-1 risk reward, price comes up, hits our support level and then rejects it and then moves to the downside. And this is USD Cad. So if we're predicting DXY is going to move up into the resistance, so it's going to move up 1.5% or so. That's what we need USD Cad to do. We need dollar to get bullish, move to the upside, whether we short here, short up here, or short all the way up here again. We're trying to short it at some point. We just need it to have a retracement here. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. All my analysis for the week: USD Cad, GJ, NU, GU, BTC. Mainly looking at GU shorts. We're looking at NU shorts as well. We're gonna move this up. We're looking at GJ shorts, which lines up with GU, and then NAS 100. We're waiting on the retest to take longs on this, and then BTC. Look out on this one because we might be in for a little bit of a surprise on BTC where this thing could move to the downside. So pretty much it. All the analysis is going to be posted in Discord, Telegram. Nick's been posting about the Forex League Elite program. So new program that we got. If you guys are interested in actually getting involved, getting all the Forex League programs, then make sure you guys apply. Everything's posted in the telly. All info's in there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So another blitz in the books.
Yeah, the info is out there, guys. The analysis is set. So let's see how this week turns out. But yeah, as Angelo said, if you guys aren't a member, definitely go apply. Just answer honestly, run through those questions, and then we'll get back to you. But yeah, guys, other than that, have a good week. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out.
Oh yeah, best of luck this week, everyone. Peace out.
Peace, guys.